This video covers the true homicide case and contains details that deeply affected seasoned Milwaukee investigators, including evidence so disturbing that veteran detectives described it as one of the most chilling cases they'd worked in their careers.
I don't think she's alive. I hope I'm wrong. I pray every day. I want her to walk in for Thanksgiving or for Christmas.
Tony and Maureen Dwyer now wonder how they move forward.
Without a body, there's no closure. And every morning I wake up, and it's just natural. The first thing I think about is, where's my baby? And we want her back.
The Dwyers say they're not getting answers from police.
It's hard for us to know where to turn in this case because police are doing as much as they can, but it seems there are things that maybe they didn't do that we think maybe they should have.
Kelly was not the only woman victimized by this evil man. Other female victims have come forward to speak out against him. He is a serial sexual predator, as well as a killer. The actions of this devil have shattered so many lives. Our family, the Milwaukee community will never be the same. Our hearts are broken to the core. Our relationships with one another have been pushed to the very limits of endurance in our family and our friends.
In October 2013, a 27-year-old woman vanished from Milwaukee without a trace, sparking an investigation that would grip the community and expose how easily someone can make another person disappear in plain sight. What detectives uncovered would challenge everything they thought they knew about digital evidence and modern surveillance. In 2013, disappearing completely was supposed to be impossible. We all leave digital breadcrumbs, social media posts documenting our lives, text messages to friends and family, debit card transactions at coffee shops, cell phone pings connecting to towers. Every moment creates data. Everyone leaves a trail. But in October 2013, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a 27-year-old woman vanished. Her phone went dead. Her social media fell silent. Her bank account froze. No posts, no texts, no purchases, no pings. She simply stopped existing. In the digital age, that shouldn't be possible. But someone made it happen anyway. Someone knew exactly how to erase every trace. If you're joining us for this investigation, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Let's uncover the truth together. October 12th, 2013. Saturday morning. Lululemon store, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Kelly Dwyer didn't show up for her shift. For anyone else, that might not raise immediate alarm. But for Kelly, her co-workers knew something was catastrophically wrong. The 27-year-old yoga instructor was the most reliable person on the schedule. Always on time, always prepared, always connected. When phone calls went straight to voicemail, concern turned to panic. Friends frantically checked her social media. Nothing. Her last post was dated October 10th, 2 days earlier. No Instagram updates, no Facebook activity, no text responses. For someone who documented every moment of her life online, the silence was deafening. When was the last time you went 24 hours without your phone? Kelly wasn't just a Lululemon employee. She worked 3 jobs: yoga instructor, a retail associate, nanny for a local family. She'd moved to Milwaukee from the Madison area back in 2008. Building a life filled with close friendships and community connections. Active, optimistic, vibrant. Kelly had just celebrated her 27th birthday. She was the kind of person who lit up a room, who always saw the best in people. And now, she'd simply vanished. By Saturday afternoon, her friends weren't waiting any longer. A missing person report was filed immediately with Milwaukee police. Within hours, the community mobilized. Flyers went up throughout the city, search parties organized, Social media campaigns launched with Kelly's photo plastered across every platform. Local news picked up the story quickly. Kelly Dwyer is missing. Concern rippled through Milwaukee. A young woman, deeply connected to her community, always in touch with friends and family, gone without a trace. No goodbye, no warning, no explanation. But where had Kelly Dwyer gone? The answer would reveal an impossible mystery.
And she did call me on the Wednesday night before her disappearance and said, "I'm not going to stay on the phone long, I'm just walking home from work and I wanted to tell you how much I love you." That was the last time I heard her voice.
And both say it's impossibly frustrating not knowing where she is now.
Constant phone calls from everyone. People don't know what to do. They feel bad for us, that they feel helpless, just like we feel helpless. They want to do something, but they don't know what to do. And they're asking us, what can we do? And we say, we don't know. Just pray. Pretty much pray. Keep praying and keep talking about Kelly and thinking about Kelly and just pray, because at this point, there's not much else we can do.
Milwaukee police then began retracing Kelly's final known movements, and the trail led them back to the night of October 10th. Kelly had been on a date. She'd spent the evening at a restaurant and bar in Milwaukee with a man she'd been casually seeing. They had drinks, shared food, enjoyed each other's company. Around 2 a.m., surveillance cameras captured them leaving together. The relationship wasn't serious, at least not officially. Kelly had met him through online dating about a year earlier. Friends described it as a friends with benefits arrangement. Nothing exclusive. Kelly was actively seeing other men. Her dating app profile still very much active. She was keeping her options open, exploring connections, figuring out what she wanted. But recently, my friends noticed Kelly seemed more hopeful about this particular relationship. She'd mentioned it was starting to take on greater meaning to her. Maybe they could become something more serious, she'd said. She was optimistic. The man she was with that night was 38-year-old Kris Zocco, an IT professional with a successful career. He lived in an upscale apartment building in downtown Milwaukee, Lafayette Place Apartments, 18th floor. When Milwaukee police reviewed the building's surveillance system, they discovered Lafayette Place had extensive camera coverage. Multiple security cameras positioned throughout the building, lobbies, hallways, common areas. The footage showed Kelly entering the building with Kris at approximately 2 a.m. on October 10th. But then, something impossible. Investigators reviewed every camera angle. They checked every exit systematically: front doors, side entrances, loading docks, emergency exits. They watched hours upon hours of footage, scrubbing through every frame from October 10th onward. Kelly Dwyer walked into that building, but she never walked out. Not on camera, not anywhere. Despite extensive surveillance coverage, there was zero footage of Kelly leaving Lafayette Place Apartments. She'd entered on the early morning of October 10th, and as far as the cameras were concerned, she'd simply vanished inside. How does someone enter a building with extensive surveillance and never exit? Where did Kelly Dwyer go? What happened on that 18th floor? Multiple cameras. Zero exits. What happened inside Kris Zocco's apartment on the 18th floor? But first, investigators needed to understand who Kris Zocco really was. On paper, the 38-year-old looked like exactly the kind of person Kelly would be attracted to. Successful in the IT field, Kris worked as a technology professional, the kind of educated, well-paid executive who'd held good positions with major companies throughout his career. He'd relocated to Milwaukee specifically for career opportunities, settling into a nice apartment on the 18th floor of Lafayette Place, an upscale building in downtown Milwaukee. When Milwaukee police detectives first interviewed Kris, their impression was straightforward. Educated, intelligent, successful. A stable professional with a good apartment in a good building. Charming, articulate, the kind of guy who would seem like a catch. He seemed completely normal. Kris was cooperative during that initial interview, his demeanor calm and measured. He confirmed his relationship with Kelly. Casual, nothing serious, friends with benefits. He walked detectives through their evening on October 10th. They went out, came back to his apartment, had drinks. He admitted they'd used cocaine that night. They had sex, he said, then both went to sleep. According to Kris, Kelly left his apartment the morning of October 11th, around 9 a.m. He told detectives he'd heard the door close behind her as she walked out. When pressed about her disappearance, Kris suggested she was probably with other men. After all, she was seeing other guys too, he reminded investigators. But there was a catastrophic problem with Kris's story. No camera footage showed Kelly leaving the building. Not at 9 a.m., not at any time. If Kelly had walked out that morning, the extensive surveillance system should have captured it. But the cameras told a different story than Kris Zocco. Kris claimed Kelly walked out alive. But the cameras told a different story, and what police were about to find would shatter his story completely. Kris had admitted to using cocaine with Kelly that night. That admission gave Milwaukee police exactly what they needed: a legal basis to search his apartment thoroughly. What they found would expose the first cracks in Kris Zocco's carefully constructed facade. The drug evidence was extensive. Lines of cocaine sat openly on the surface of a magazine. Marijuana canisters filled the refrigerator. Painkillers scattered throughout the apartment. Pills of various types. Pipes and other drug paraphernalia lying around. This wasn't casual recreational use. This was evidence of regular, heavy drug consumption. But it was something in the bathroom that caught investigators' attention for a different reason. The shower curtain hung torn from its rod, multiple hooks broken and dangling. Fragments of the curtain liner were damaged, ripped. Why would a shower curtain be violently torn like that? Investigators carefully photographed and documented the damage. The significance wasn't immediately clear, but it was noted. Filed away. Kris was arrested on drug possession charges and brought to Milwaukee Police Station for formal interrogation. And that's when his demeanor shifted completely. Gone was the cooperative, calm professional from the first interview. In his place, someone flip, dismissive, dripping with arrogance and condescension. When detectives pressed him with questions, Kris deflected. When they asked about mental health history, his response was telling. No bipolar, no schizophrenia, that's all open to interpretation. He was minimizing, deflecting. The interrogation became increasingly contentious before ending abruptly. Later, Kris sent a text message to detectives. He referenced the security footage. The fact that Kelly doesn't appear on the exit cameras. He tried to explain it away. Maybe she met someone else in the building. Maybe she left with one of the other guys she was seeing. She was dating multiple people after all, he reminded them. But investigators weren't buying it. Their suspicion was growing with every excuse, every deflection, every inconsistency. They obtained a warrant for Kris's cell phone. They needed to see what was on that device. Investigators were about to discover what was on Kris's cell phone, and it would expose a pattern of dangerous predatory behavior. When Milwaukee police executed the warrant on Kris Zocco's cell phone, forensic analysts then began combing through the device's contents. What they discovered would fundamentally change the entire investigation. Buried in the phone's files was a video, recorded approximately 3 weeks before Kelly vanished. The footage showed Kelly and Kris engaged in a sexual act. But this wasn't consensual intimacy. Kelly appeared in visible, obvious distress. She couldn't breathe. She was straining for breath, struggling during the act. The video raised immediate, horrifying questions about consent and safety. Prosecutors would later describe the footage as showing dangerous, reckless sexual behavior, the kind that puts someone's life at risk. But the video wasn't the only disturbing evidence on Kris's phone. Investigators found multiple photographs. Image after image showed Kelly appearing completely unconscious on Kris's bed, seemingly passed out, incapacitated, unable to consent. Kris had photographed her in these vulnerable states, documenting her helplessness. It was a disturbing collection that revealed a pattern, photographing women when they were at their most defenseless. Police couldn't link the video or photos directly to what happened on October 11th. The video had been recorded weeks earlier, but what the evidence did establish was undeniable. A pattern of dangerous, reckless sexual conduct. Sexual behavior that placed Kelly at serious risk. Behavior that could cause harm or death. A complete disregard for his partner's safety. The pattern became crystal clear. Kris Zocco was engaging in extremely risky sexual acts. Kelly had been shown in distress, unable to breathe properly. He'd been photographing women when they were unconscious and vulnerable. Behind the successful professional facade, behind the charming demeanor and nice apartment, was predatory behavior. A secret life of sexual violence carefully concealed from public view. Prosecutors analyzed the evidence and reached a chilling conclusion. This was reckless sexual conduct that demonstrated a complete disregard for human life. Actions that could cause serious injury or death. This evidence would become the foundation for murder charges. The video showed a terrifying pattern. But was Kelly still alive? Investigators were about to get their answer. And the evidence was mounting. Torn shower curtain hooks in the bathroom. No exit footage despite Kris's claims. Disturbing video showing dangerous sexual behavior. A clear pattern of reckless conduct. Milwaukee police made a critical decision. Bring in a specially trained cadaver dog. The dog was trained to detect one thing: the scent of human decomposition. The search was methodical and systematic. The cadaver dog worked through Kris's apartment, the building's common areas, and finally, Kris's vehicle. What happened next would transform the investigation completely. Alert after alert after alert. The dog signaled in the hallway outside Kris's apartment door, along the path from the apartment to the elevator and stairs, in the parking garage at Kris's assigned parking level, near the dumpster access door on the 18th floor. Yes, inside the apartment, the alerts continued. The guest bedroom, the guest bathroom, right where that torn shower curtain had been found, the master bedroom, throughout the living spaces. But the strongest, most vigorous alerts came from one location, Kris's bed in the master bedroom. The dog gave its final formal trained alert directly on top of the bed where Kris claimed he and Kelly had simply gone to sleep. Then, investigators examined Kris's vehicle. The cadaver dog alerted on the car trunk interior, the trunk door handle. The scent of human decomposition was unmistakable, consistent, undeniable. A detective would later describe the moment. That changed this case forever. Kelly Dwyer had not left that apartment alive. Her body had been in that apartment, on that bed, in those rooms. It had been moved through the hallway, taken down to the parking garage, placed in Kris Zocco's car trunk. This was no longer a missing person case. This was now a homicide investigation. Milwaukee Police Major Crimes Unit took full control. Forensic teams processed the apartment extensively, documenting and photographing every item, collecting every piece of potential evidence. Kris's vehicle was impounded for forensic examination. During the search, investigators found an external hard drive. Forensic analysis revealed disturbing content. Child pornography. Kris claimed the hard drive was from a former workplace, denying any knowledge. He was arrested on multiple charges, including possession of child pornography. Kelly was most likely dead. The cadaver dog proved it. Her body had been in that apartment, in that car trunk. But now, the $1 million question was, how did Kris get her body out of a building with extensive camera surveillance? The answer to how Kris transported Kelly's body would come from someone who knew him intimately, but knew nothing about Kelly at all. As Milwaukee police investigated deeper into Kris Zocco's life, they made a shocking discovery. Kris had been in a serious, committed relationship with another woman. Not casual dating. A long-term relationship that had been ongoing for years. And this woman knew absolutely nothing about Kelly Dwyer's existence. Kris had completely compartmentalized his life, living two entirely different realities. Police interviewed the girlfriend and showed her photographs taken during the apartment searches. They asked her to review them carefully to identify anything that looked different or missing. What had changed since she'd last been there? Her answers were revealing. The bathroom shower curtain, now torn and damaged. That explained the broken hooks investigators had documented. Prosecutors would later theorize it had been used to wrap Kelly's body. The bathroom rug that was always there, gone. The decorative towels, gone. All the bathroom textiles and fabrics had been stripped from the apartment, removed to eliminate evidence. But it was her next observation that broke the case wide open. A large silver-gray travel golf bag. The girlfriend told investigators it had been sitting in front of the TV for weeks. Substantial in size, approximately 2 to 2.5 feet wide with a padded interior. She and Kris would literally step over it constantly to get around the apartment. It was just always there, part of the furniture, now completely missing. An investigator asked the critical question, could Kelly's body have fit inside that golf bag? Her answer, absolutely. The prosecution theory crystallized. Kelly's body had been wrapped in the shower curtain, placed inside the golf bag, then carried or wheeled out of the building. To anyone watching, it would appear completely normal. Just a resident taking sports equipment out. And Kris had advantages. Lafayette Place apartments didn't have elevator cameras. He could transport the golf bag via elevator or stairwell without being filmed. In the parking garage, the cameras were motion activated. Investigators believe he either got lucky, knew the camera blind spots, or the cameras simply didn't activate during his movements. A security guard wouldn't question a resident with a golf bag. It was a common, unremarkable sight. The depth of Kris's deception was staggering. A secret girlfriend of multiple years, completely unaware Kelly existed. An entire relationship kept hidden. His life perfectly compartmentalized. As one detective assessed, he was living two different lives. For his public persona, he was a successful IT professional, devoted boyfriend. And his private reality, a predatory behavior, dangerous sexual conduct, murderer. The perfect facade was crumbling, revealing the predator beneath. The golf bag theory explained how he transported her body. But when did Kris move Kelly's body? And where did he take her? But before we follow that timeline, there's something crucial to understand. The warning signs had been there all along. Kelly's friends had noticed concerning signs about Kris Zocco. Multiple people felt uncomfortable around him, sensed something was deeply off about the relationship. They expressed their concerns directly to Kelly. She brushed off their worries every time. One friend's reaction was particularly telling. During a social gathering with Kelly and Kris, she experienced a sudden, overwhelming urge to leave. She later described feeling bad energy, a visceral sense of danger. Her instinct was screaming that something was wrong. She left abruptly. Later, she would wish she'd been more insistent with Kelly, more forceful about her concerns. But the most visible warning signs were physical. Friends noticed bruising on Kelly's body, marks on her wrists, bruising around her neck area. When they asked about the injuries, Kelly laughed it off as a crazy night. She made light of the bruises, dismissed their concerns quickly, changed the subject when pressed. Just fooling around, she told them. Nothing to worry about. Meanwhile, Kelly continued actively dating other men. Her profiles remained active on dating apps. She was seeing multiple people, keeping her options open. Friends wondered if Kelly was subconsciously sensing danger, maintaining other connections as a safety net, some unconscious part of her recognizing she needed an exit strategy. In hindsight, the tragic pattern is heartbreakingly clear. Friends deeply regret not pushing harder, not being more forceful. How many of us dismiss red flags in those we care about? It's easy to see the pattern now. The warning signs were visible. But Kelly trusted Kris. She wanted to see the best in him. The violence was already happening, hidden behind rough sex explanations. Friends' instincts were absolutely correct. Kelly's optimism and trust kept her from seeing the danger. Those bruises on her wrists and neck weren't from fooling around. They were warning signs of what was to come. Kelly had ignored the warnings. Now investigators would piece together exactly what happened after she entered Kris Zocco's apartment for the last time. Milwaukee police spent months painstakingly reconstructing exactly what happened after Kelly entered that apartment. Surveillance footage from Lafayette Place was reviewed repeatedly, frame by frame. Cell phone records were subpoenaed and analyzed. Credit card transaction records obtained. Every movement documented. Investigators built a minute-by-minute timeline of October 11, 2013. And what emerged was chilling. At exactly 10:08 a.m., Kelly Dwyer's cell phone stopped transmitting its signal. The phone went completely dead. No more pings to cell towers, no more digital trace. Investigators theorized Kris destroyed it, powered it completely down, or disposed of it. The Milwaukee River ran nearby. Kelly's phone was never recovered. Her digital trail ended at 10:08 a.m. Just 16 minutes later, at 10:24 a.m., surveillance footage captured Kris at the parking garage. He was standing near his vehicle, the trunk open. Investigators observed a small gray-silver object visible in the footage. A detective's assessment, consistent with a travel golf bag. The theory: Kelly's body was already inside that golf bag, already in the trunk. Over the next 8 hours, surveillance showed Kris making trip after trip from his apartment to the garage, loading various items into his vehicle: bags, boxes, materials. Investigators believe he was methodically cleaning the apartment, removing evidence, disposing of items that could link him to Kelly's death, all while her body remained in the trunk. At 6:16 p.m., Kris finally left Lafayette Place Apartments, driving away with Kelly's body still concealed in his trunk. Where was he going? At 6:30 p.m., Kris arrived at his mother's residence. He told her he was dropping off summer sports equipment, golf clubs, baseball equipment to store. He stayed briefly. His mother would later tell investigators nothing seemed unusual about the visit. But the critical question was, did he leave the golf bag with Kelly's body there? His mother's statement was clear. She never saw any golf bag during that visit. The investigators' theory was that the golf bag, with Kelly's body inside, remained in Kris's trunk. Analysis of Kris's cell phone records revealed something else deliberate. During critical time periods, his phone was turned completely off. No location pings, no tower connections. Investigators believe the phone was intentionally powered down to avoid creating a digital trail. He knew exactly what he was doing to avoid detection. Kris had Kelly's body in his trunk, but he couldn't store it at his apartment building or his mother's house. So where would he spend the night? He spent it at his secret girlfriend's house, the woman who knew nothing about Kelly Dwyer's existence. Kris was scheduled to arrive at her house for dinner at 7:30 p.m. It was their regular evening together. But Kris didn't show up until 8:45 p.m., 75 minutes late. His girlfriend noticed the unusual tardiness. Detectives would later theorize those 75 minutes were spent scouting possible body disposal locations, driving through rural areas surrounding Milwaukee, looking for isolated, secluded spots, searching for where to dump Kelly's body. When Kris finally arrived, his girlfriend immediately noticed something was wrong. He appeared noticeably ruffled, nervous. His demeanor was agitated, completely unlike his normal self. He kept fiddling constantly with his cell phone, claiming it wasn't working properly, and making excuses about technology issues. Something seemed off. Kris stayed overnight at her house that night, and just outside, parked in front of the residence, sat his car. Kelly Dwyer's body remained locked in the trunk. That night, Kris was extremely restless. He couldn't sleep. He sweated profusely through the bed sheets, so much that his girlfriend had to change the bedding during the night. She would later describe it as very unusual behavior for Kris, completely out of character. He'd never exhibited anything like this before. Investigators would later assess the situation bluntly. Kelly Dwyer's body was absolutely in that trunk, parked outside all night long. Kris was psychologically falling apart. The guilt, the fear, the stress, all manifesting physically through profuse sweating and restlessness. He couldn't leave Kelly's body in his apartment. That would be the first place police would search. But Saturday morning, October 12th, was fast approaching. Time was running out. He had to dispose of the body. Saturday morning, October 12th, arrived. Kris had to dispose of Kelly's body, and what he did next would create a trail investigators could follow. When Kris left his girlfriend's house that Saturday morning with Kelly's body still concealed in his trunk, he drove west, away from Milwaukee, heading into rural Wisconsin. His destination, a cheese shop called the Mouse House, located in the countryside west of Madison, approximately 80 miles from Milwaukee. A small specialty shop surrounded by farmland and wooded areas. At 9:55 a.m., Kris entered the shop and made a purchase. Half a pound of cheese. He paid with a credit card, creating a time-stamped receipt. Investigators would later ask the obvious question, why would someone drive 160 miles round trip for half a pound of cheese? The investigative theory was clear. Kris was disposing of Kelly's body in rural Wisconsin. The Mouse House area offered everything needed: farmland, wooded areas, isolated roads, or endless potential hiding places. Remote, rarely traveled terrain, perfect for body disposal. Then he established an alibi by making a purchase with his credit card, creating a paper trail. I was just buying cheese. Next, Kris drove to a Sports Authority sporting goods store in a shopping center area. At 12:11 p.m., he purchased a new pair of sneakers, again using his credit card. Investigators theorized he was replacing sneakers contaminated with evidence, disposing of shoes that had walked on the body disposal site, shoes that might contain soil or biological evidence from the dump location, getting rid of evidence, replacing them with new, clean, identical shoes. But it was the time between those two purchases that exposed everything. The distance between the Mouse House and Sports Authority, 54 miles. Expected drive time at normal speed, 47 minutes. Actual time between Kris's purchases based on credit card receipts, 2 hours and 16 minutes. 90 minutes completely unaccounted for. A detective's assessment, more than enough time to find a secluded spot and dump a body. Time to drive off main roads, find an isolated location, dispose of Kelly's remains, return to the main road, and continue to Sports Authority. The credit card receipts created a documented timeline. Mouse House at 9:55 a.m. Sports Authority at 12:11 p.m. An apparently innocent shopping trip, just buying cheese and new sneakers. But that 90-minute gap told a very different story. A time period where Kris was completely unaccounted for. No receipts, no witnesses, no surveillance. The theory: Kelly's body was dumped somewhere between those two locations, on rural Wisconsin farmland, a remote wooded area off the main roads, isolated enough that there were no witnesses. As one detective noted, finding that exact spot would be like finding a needle in a haystack. Thousands of acres of rural land, countless possible locations. Investigators had the timeline. They had the theory. They had the 90-minute gap. But without Kelly's body, they couldn't charge Kris with murder. Not yet. And because of this, the Milwaukee County prosecutors faced an agonizing dilemma. They had overwhelming circumstantial evidence, cadaver dog alerts throughout Kris's apartment and vehicle, a suspicious timeline with unexplained gaps, the missing golf bag identified by his girlfriend, video showing a dangerous sexual pattern. But Wisconsin law presented an obstacle. They couldn't charge murder without recovering Kelly's body. They would have to wait. In November 2014, approximately 1 year after Kelly's disappearance, Kris went to trial on different charges: child pornography and drug possession. The evidence came from materials found on the external hard drive and drugs discovered during the apartment search.
Curtis Simandl was on the jury that convicted Zocco in 16 of the 17 counts of child porn. He hopes Zocco gets the max.
I hope that they would actually be able to plea bargain it down and get him to tell where Kelly's body actually was.
The case moved Simandl and another juror so much they showed up to the sentencing.
It was really sort of a closure to a story, a bad story.
But the final chapter is yet to be written. The state filed a more than 50-page document yesterday. The defense said that wasn't enough time for them to review it.
We're not delaying this because there's some grand plan. It's simply a matter of allowing Mr. Levine and myself to be fully informed.
Family and friends of the Dwyers wore silver ribbons in court. They vow to return.
You've got to sometime be able to come up with a body and be able to put it in the ground and have closure. They don't have that yet. He knows where she is, in my opinion.
The sentencing been moved now to the last Friday of this month. Zocco's family and attorney left here with no comment. Reporting live at the Milwaukee County Courthouse, Michelle Fiore, today's TMJ4.
Michelle, thank you very much.
The trial proceeded in Milwaukee County Circuit Court. Kris was convicted on the child pornography counts. He pleaded guilty to the drug possession charges. Combined sentence, 19 years in prison. Kris Zocco was incarcerated, but the murder investigation remained officially open, still hanging over him. Milwaukee detectives hadn't given up the search for Kelly's body. Meanwhile, Kelly Dwyer's family and friends waited in painful limbo. Where was Kelly's body? Would she ever be found? They were trapped in the worst kind of uncertainty. A missing person case with no closure, no final goodbye, no place to mourn. Months passed, then more than a year. 18 months went by, and then, 18 months after Kelly vanished, a discovery in rural Wisconsin would finally provide answers. April 2015. 18 months after Kelly Dwyer vanished. A local resident was walking along an isolated rural road in Jefferson County, Wisconsin, a dead-end country road, rarely traveled, approximately 40 to 50 miles west of Milwaukee. Remote, wooded, far from everything. The walker noticed something unusual, a glint of reflected light catching through the trees in a wooded area off the road. Something white, barely visible through the brush. Curiosity pulled them closer. They walked into the wooded area for a better look, and then they realized what they were seeing. A human skull. They immediately contacted the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department. Deputies responded, securing the area as a potential crime scene. A forensic team was dispatched. The medical examiner was called. Skeletal remains were carefully documented, photographed, and recovered from the site. The remains were transported to the medical examiner's office. A forensic odontologist conducted dental records comparison. 6 days after the discovery, the analysis was complete. The dental records matched definitively. Confirmed. Kelly Dwyer. Milwaukee Police Department was notified immediately. 18 months of waiting was finally over. The location was significant. The body was found approximately 6 miles from Interstate 94, in the rural area near the Mouse House Cheese Shop. Within the exact region where Kris had those 90 unaccounted minutes on October 12, 2013. The investigator theory was confirmed. He'd disposed of Kelly's body during that gap between the cheese shop and Sports Authority. But it was the condition of the skeletal remains that provided the most chilling confirmation. The medical examiner documented the body's position. The skeleton was found in an unusual, completely unnatural position. Feet and legs positioned in one area. One leg completely turned, twisted. Left arm positioned unnaturally behind the back. Upper body contorted. The forensic analysis conclusion. Body positioned as if she'd been scrunched into a container, consistent with being compressed into a small space, like a golf bag. The golf bag transportation theory was confirmed by the skeleton's position. At the scene itself, there was no physical evidence beyond Kelly's remains. No shower curtain, no bathroom towels, no clothing, no golf bag. Kris had successfully disposed of all the evidence materials. leaving only Kelly's skeletal remains behind. The medical examiner faced a limitation. Cause of death was medically undeterminable. After 18 months of outdoor exposure, weather, animals, natural decomposition, only skeletal remains survived. No soft tissue remained. The examiner couldn't definitively determine how Kelly had died. There was no obvious trauma to the bones themselves, but the body's position told the story of concealment. Everything aligned. The body was found precisely where the timeline predicted. The location matched the 90-minute gap theory perfectly. The contorted skeleton position confirmed the golf bag method. All investigative theories aligned with the physical evidence. The circumstantial case had just become significantly stronger. Kelly Dwyer had been found. The theories had been confirmed. Now prosecutors could finally seek justice.
Today, Milwaukee County District Attorney John Chisholm and investigators from both Milwaukee and Jefferson counties met to discuss evidence and where the investigation goes from here.
There's a lot of work to be done still, and we don't have a lot of answers.
As investigators continue their work, friends and family remember Kelly.
I'm sure it's such a relief to her family to at least have some closure so they can start their healing process.
The location raised immediate questions. The site was remote, away from neighborhoods and traffic, a place chosen not by chance, but by intention.
Now that the Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office now had the final evidence they needed, which was Kelly's body, they made a very strategic decision. There would be no rush to file murder charges. Because Kris Zocco was already incarcerated and serving 19 years on child pornography and drug convictions, there was no risk of him fleeing. The murder case was too important to rush. Prosecutors wanted every piece of evidence absolutely perfect. For 2 additional years, from 2015 to 2017, the investigation continued. Forensic experts reviewed all evidence again. The timeline was verified and re-verified. Every witness was re-interviewed. Methodically, prosecutors built a circumstantial mountain, a case that didn't require a definitive cause of death, focusing instead on reckless conduct and the elaborate cover-up. In 2017, on 2 years after Kelly's body was discovered and 4 years after her death, formal charges were filed. Kris Zocco was charged with Kelly Dwyer's murder in Milwaukee County Circuit Court. The specific charges: first-degree reckless homicide, not premeditated murder, but reckless conduct causing death, hiding a corpse, concealing her body and impeding the investigation, strangulation and slash or suffocation, the method of death based on the pattern of evidence. The prosecution's theory framework was clear. They weren't arguing Kris planned to kill Kelly. They were arguing he killed her during a reckless, dangerous sexual act, similar to the video from 3 weeks earlier. His reckless conduct caused Kelly's death. Then came the elaborate, calculated cover-up to hide the crime. January 2018, 5 years after Kelly Dwyer vanished. The trial for her murder was about to begin.
Kris Zocco will see his 90th birthday before he gets out of prison for his role in Kelly Dwyer's death.
He deserves to live a long, long life in jail, hopefully tortured by the choices he's made.
Along with her father and sister, Kelly Dwyer's mother asked the judge for the maximum sentence.
When your daughter goes missing for 1.5 years with no clue as to where she is, that is torture beyond belief.
Justice finally arrived in a crowded courtroom filled with family, friends, media, and the public. Kelly's family sat present throughout, waiting for answers they'd been denied for half a decade. Milwaukee County prosecutors presented their comprehensive theory. Kris Zocco had engaged in a pattern of dangerous sexual behavior, a pattern dating back years, involving multiple partners. The prosecution called other women to testify about their experiences with Kris. These women described extremely risky, dangerous sexual acts. They recounted being taken to the brink of death for sexual gratification, a reckless disregard for their safety, a pattern of strangulation and breath restriction during sex, behavior that could easily cause death. Prosecutors argued that on the night of October 11, 2013, Kris went too far with Kelly. He engaged in the same dangerous sexual behavior shown in the video from 3 weeks earlier. The video where Kelly couldn't breathe, where she appeared in visible distress. That night, his reckless conduct killed her. The theory: strangulation or suffocation during a sexual act. Not premeditated murder, reckless homicide. Kris caused Kelly's death through dangerous, reckless sexual behavior. Then came the cover-up. After Kelly died in his apartment, prosecutors argued, Kris wrapped her body in the shower curtain, explaining the torn hooks. He placed her body inside the large golf bag. Over an 8-hour period, he loaded items into his car trunk. He drove to his mother's house, establishing an alibi. He stayed overnight at his secret girlfriend's house with Kelly's body locked in the trunk outside. The next morning, October 12th, he drove to rural Wisconsin. During a 90-minute unaccounted gap, he disposed of her body. He bought cheese at the Mouse House, creating a paper trail alibi. He bought new sneakers at Sports Authority, replacing shoes contaminated with evidence. The evidence mountain prosecutors presented was staggering. The disturbing video from 3 weeks before showing Kelly in distress, unable to breathe. Multiple photos of Kelly unconscious on Kris's bed. Cadaver dog alerts throughout the apartment. The bed, hallway, parking garage, car trunk, dumpster area. The missing golf bag, identified by his girlfriend who described its size and location. Missing bathroom items, shower curtain, rug, towels. Timeline reconstruction through surveillance footage, credit card receipts, cell phone records. Kris's cell phone deliberately turned off during critical disposal times. Credit card receipts time-stamped. Mouse House at 9:55 a.m., Sports Authority at 12:11 p.m. Kelly's body found in Jefferson County, 6 miles from the Mouse House route. Her skeleton's contorted position consistent with golf bag compression. The 90-minute gap occurring exactly where her body was discovered. The defense presented their arguments. No eyewitness to Kelly's death. No DNA evidence directly linking Kris to murder. No CSI moment with a definitive proof. The defense argued the video showed consensual sexual activity, comparing it to the popular book 50 Shades of Grey. Kelly could have left the building during camera blind spots or gaps. A witness claimed seeing Kelly alive that weekend after October 10th. The cadaver dog alerts couldn't be independently verified scientifically. Kelly was seeing multiple men, active on dating apps, could have been someone else. The golf bag was circumstantial, didn't prove murder. The entire case was built on circumstantial evidence with no direct proof. The prosecution's rebuttal was powerful. Every single piece of circumstantial evidence pointed directly to Kris Zocco. Security video was extensively reviewed. Kelly never exited the building despite Kris's claims. The cadaver dog was professionally trained. Death was confirmed in the apartment and car. The missing items were corroborated by his girlfriend's detailed testimony about the golf bag and shower curtain. The 90-minute timeline gap occurred precisely where Kelly's body was found 18 months later. The body's location fell exactly along the route between the Mouse House and Sports Authority. The skeleton's position confirmed the golf bag compression theory perfectly. Prosecutors delivered their closing. No other person could have done this. The circumstantial mountain is undeniable and overwhelming. The case was submitted to the jury. 12 jurors deliberated Kelly Dwyer's fate, reviewing all evidence, weighing the prosecution's theory against the defense's arguments. The deliberation lasted 3.5 hours. Tension mounted in the courtroom. Families waited. The jury returned. The judge asked for the verdict. The foreperson stood and announced Kris Zocco to be guilty on all counts. First-degree reckless homicide, guilty. Hiding a corpse, guilty. Strangulation and suffocation, guilty. The courtroom erupted in emotion. Then Kelly's family wept. Tears of relief, of grief, of justice finally served. Kris was visibly devastated. His head dropped into his hands. The 5-year legal journey was complete. He was a convicted murderer. But what would Kris Zocco's final sentence be? The judge pronounced Kris Zocco's sentence, 31 years in prison for reckless homicide and related charges, consecutive to the 19 years he was already serving for child pornography and drug convictions. Total combined sentence, 50 years in Wisconsin State Prison. Kris Zocco would be an elderly man if ever released. From the bench, the judge's words were clear. Demonstrated a danger to society, particularly to women. A pattern of predatory, dangerous behavior, reckless disregard for human life. The elaborate cover-up showed consciousness of guilt. The sentence reflected both the severity of his crimes and the need to protect the public. But this case was never really about Kris Zocco. It was about Kelly Dwyer, a vibrant 27-year-old woman full of life, a yoga instructor who loved helping others, always optimistic, and always seeing the best in people. Friends described her as a loving person who didn't find fault in anyone. She was a light in everyone's life. Her family's statement captured the magnitude of their loss. Profound, devastating. Kelly had been finding her way in life, building her future. She trusted the wrong person, and it cost her everything. The warning signs had been visible. A friend's instinctive reaction, that bad energy, that sense of danger, was correct. The bruises on Kelly's wrists and neck that she laughed off weren't accidents. Friends wished they'd pushed harder, been more insistent. Kelly's optimism prevented her from seeing the danger hiding behind Kris's successful professional facade, the tragedy of ignored red flags. After 5 years, justice was served. Kelly Dwyer's family finally had closure. Her body was recovered. Her killer was convicted and sentenced. Her memory honored. One word captures this entire case. Tragedy. A vibrant life cut short. A family forever changed. But justice was ultimately served. Kelly Dwyer will always be remembered. If this case moved you, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on your notification bell, and please, do share this Kelly Dwyer's story so her memory continues to live on. And in the comments, let me know what warning signs you think all women need to pay more attention to, either on dating sites or just in general. Let's keep the conversation going, because stories like Kelly Dwyer's matters to all of us. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.